Hello there, everyone. I'm Susan Boback, the card connoisseur, and I'm really glad you stopped by today. It's getting closer to the holidays, and perhaps you're not in the mood to be thinking about a last minute card. But oftentimes we get a request or we have a need for a card. Maybe it's a Christmas card, maybe it's a Hanukkah card. Maybe it's some other occasion, like someone's just had surgery, or you discovered that someone fell and they're not going to be able to get out and enjoy the holidays. Whatever the occasion is, we all often need a card at the last minute. And when our lives are quite busy, like they are with the holiday time, we don't always want to have to take out all of our supplies and go through our sample book and try to figure out how could we make a nice card. So I've gone through my cards over the last few years, and I've picked 4 that I like to make that I can make simply without getting out instructions or a pattern, because I've made them so many times. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do, is to pick 2 or 4 of your own card designs that you like to make, that you can make over and over, make a nice card in a short time. So this series is called Know Your 4, and I first did it in 2023. So today's card that I'm showing you for my own Know Your 4 designs is, I call it the show off design. Now you might know it as another design name, but this is what I'm calling it. And the reason that I call it that is because it shows off both sides of the paper. So choose a paper that you will, that you like the print on both sides of the paper. Okay, so you're going to take a 5.5 by 4.25. That's the basic size that we use quite often. It's 5.5 inches here, 4.25 here. And you're going to take your paper trimmer and you're going to cut off about 1.25 inch from the fold in. You can go 1.5, you can go 1. Whatever it is, you just decide. So you're going to cut it off right here. And then, as the directions say right in front of you here, you're going to set this piece aside or use it as a latch. And I'll show you how to do that. So this is a way for you to use your beautiful designer series paper from Stampin' Up! Or any scrapbook or holiday paper that you have chosen. And you're going to use it because you like both sides of the paper. So here's my design then. I've cut in 1.25 inch. I have this piece right here. And for right now, for the very basic version of this card, I've set that aside. Now I'll just move this over here in case you need to refer to these instructions during this discussion. So here's a piece of paper, beautifully coordinated. This is called Modern Christmas, and I love metallic, so I'm sure that's why I got this. And I love trees. This piece is 5.25 by 4 in order to have a little layer of the card base around the outside. So because this is a show-off card and I want to show both sides of the paper, I'm going to attach it underneath this 1.25 inch section. So I'm going to glue it right here so that when you open the card, you get to see the other side. Now here's another piece from this package of paper. Here's one side and here's another. And I've chosen, because I like trees, I've chosen this side to go here, but you could choose this side too. So as I said, I'm going to glue my layer to the back of this piece then, putting a little glue. Now, if you haven't worked with glue too much, I will remind you that we're not in first grade and we don't need a big blob of glue. We need just a little bit of glue. Don't go overboard with your glue. And then to glue it on, I'm just going to put it right here, line it up on the side and the edge the way I want it to go. Don't be in a hurry. You want to get it straight as possible. And then I'm just going to push this down and smooth this out. Now I'm going to take this layer then. If this is 1.25 by 5.5. This piece will be 1 by 5.25. And I'm just going to glue that on here. I'm sorry, I've had a cold and I'll be clearing my voice, my throat a few times. Now again, take your time. You want to get it straight as possible. Okay, so there's a piece. And you could make, this could be the card simply as this. You see the two different patterns. You open it up, you see the pattern back there. Then you could stamp an image or stamp a sentiment or write your message in here. It would make a very nice card. Now let me show you how to do a stepped up version, which means adding more details and layers. Now this is the piece that I cut off from right here, okay? And so I also took this piece then and scored it, made that deep groove so that I could have a nice crisp fold here and folded it in half. So how I'm going to add this piece then, as I said, a stepped up version, is I'm going to take where the fold is on the side and I'm going to center it halfway up the page, or I should say in the middle of the page. And then I would glue it down. Now, because it's white on white, you would still want to have a white layer over the top of this so that you don't see where it's attached. So again, using just a little bit of glue, I mostly make sure that there's glue in the corners so they don't peel back. And sometimes working on grid paper or a grid sheet like this will help you to get it centered exactly where you want it to go. Just going to do that. You don't want it to stick out too much and you don't want it to go in farther because then it won't close. And then just give some pressure and you've got it down like that. Now how you would finish that off would be that you would have another piece of paper. You would just take, this is just computer paper, and you would glue it over this so that you can't see where you attached it. Then you could stamp your sentiment, write your note right here. And what I like about this then, this makes the latch that this instruction says. You could use it like this or later use it for a latch and layer it over the top. So you can see now that it comes over like this. Now that you have it over here, you might decide to round these corners or cut it a little smaller so you could see this pattern through here. And I did have a piece of paper cut. I'm sorry, it disappeared. Oh, here it is. Now this piece shows off this paper again, and I would just put it right here. Like I said, I could decide that I want to curve this, but I don't think curved is going to go along with this. You could also add, because this has gold metallic, you could add some kind of gold icon. You could cut out a gold tree. And there I've added the latch piece to the front. And so when the person gets the card and they look at it, they'll open it like this. You could decide to put something right here. Then they're looking at the beautiful paper here. They're opening it up and then they're seeing the message here. So this is what I called show off design. So that's my first that I wanted to show you of my Know Your 4. Now, with this design, I want to show you the many cards that I've either received myself or made that are all very similar to this, but where it's using the design to cut a portion of the front off. And then I'll show you some that either I made or someone else made that uses that extra piece, just like I have here. So let's just start. let's see, I'll move these up right here. Here's the very first one. And so instead of it being, oh no, this is a wrong pattern here. Instead of it being a card where it's up like this one has folded it and cut off a piece over here, and then use this piece for the sentiment. And see, it opens like that. They've added beautiful paper on the inside. So here's one design. Here's another, cut off this way, landscape, opened it like that. Here's another, again, a little variation, cut off only a piece over here, which you see from the outside. And then there's this card that's a large 5x7, but it's, again, similar. You're cutting a piece off, and then it's going to open like this. So that's my samples of the show-off design. Now here's some other versions of this show-off design where I cut a part of it off and then it's used. Now this is a variation of this where I've cut off this piece right here, just like the piece I cut off from here and then used it for a latch. What I've done on this one with the fold on the side is I've cut off the piece here and now I've added it back on like this. So it's not folded like a latch, you see. It's just attached to the front. So here's some samples then of this one. I've cut it off from here and then I've added it here. I've glued it on under this layer so that you don't see where I've glued it on. There's that one. This one, instead of it with the fold over here, the fold is at the top, and I've added it like that. Again, using this piece that you've cut off. So I think you get the picture that there's so many variations to this. I've cut this piece off here. I've tucked it under this front layer and added some die cuts. This is another one, again, where I've cut it off of here. The fold is at the left and it's landscape. Again, it's just that little variation of cutting it off. This one is similar, except I didn't, the person that made this didn't use the piece that she cut off here, and it opens like that. Okay, so this show-off design is my first of my Know Your 4. Any reason for any season, or any season for any reason. One of the other ones that I absolutely love is the variation that makes this into an easel card. Now, what an easel card is it has a little piece that folds up and then an anchor holds it in place. Now here's how it looks from above. So this is that same pattern again. I've cut it off from the fold. I've scored it in half right here, and I've added an anchor to hold it folded up. Now again, cutting it off at the fold, just like I've done here. Although on these easel cards, you don't see both sides of the paper, but you still have the piece that was cut off of the front of this one. So I've cut it off here. And here's my easel card with that cut off piece. Here's another one. Here's the fold. I've cut it off here. And I've made it into an easel card. This is a design that I was planning on putting a little calendar here, but I didn't follow through with that. Now the other card that I've made that is also one of my 4 Know Your 4 designs. Any reason, any season, is I call this the front flip, although I have heard it being called the spanner card. And these are just all different styles that either I have made or someone else has made. And this is maybe just a little bit trickier, but once you see how it goes together, I think it might become one of your favorite designs too. Now, what you do is you have your 5.5 by 4.25, and then you're going to make it a landscape design. And from the fold, I guess I better show you on the raw paper. From the fold, you're going to cut 1 inch in up to the fold, and you're going to do that on both sides. So let me show you how that's done. Now, I use a Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer. So my instructions include the instructions for use with this. So you just have to use whatever you have. So here's how I did it. I lined it up at the 1 inch right here. And I lined it up on the paper trough. Closed it down. I always get in the habit of catching the paper guide, because if I'm supposed to be using the scoring blade, which on this one is the gray one, if I'm supposed to be using the scoring blade, I want to use that and not the cutting blade. But today I'm going to be using the cutting blade. So I lined up the edge of the paper right at 1, right down here. And then I'm going to take the cutting blade and I'm going to cut right up to the fold, right up to here. Then I'm going to move it, and then I'm going to, for the left side, I'm going to line that up with the 1 inch on this side. I'm going to start by placing the cutting blade right in the fold. And I'm going to pull it down. And now I have 2 1-inch sections then on both sides of this card. And one of the things that I like about this, I just finished making 14 of these for my grandchildren for their Christmas gifts. You can design this so that there is a little pocket either for a gift card or for some currency. Now let me see if any of these have the pocket portion of it. I think this one might. Okay, so what you're going to do is, of course, you're going to choose your papers. You can see that this one has a stamped image here and paper on the left. This has coordinating paper. And this one here, though it's a little larger, this has coordinating paper on the side and from the middle. So the front flip is, which is what I call it. The only section that comes up is this middle section, and you can see that there'd be enough space for you to write a letter up there or all the way down to here. So what makes this a gift card holder then is, once I decide my papers that are going to be placed on here, then I would glue this completely down to the base. But on this side, I would only put glue here, here, and here. So I wouldn't glue down this side. Then that would leave this part right here as a little pocket. And you know, I've just, whenever I put this together, I really do most likely always leave that open. I don't put the sentiments on until it's time to use it. And then if I want to slip in like a Starbucks gift card or even a little prayer card or something like that, there's a little pocket in there for me to do that. Now, this other paper that I'm using, that I used actually on all of my grandkids' cards is called, let's see, where did I put that? It's called North Pole Delivery. And it has dogs and letters and all sorts of things that have to do with bringing or mailing a package at the holidays. So then I need to measure this. Okay, this middle section is 3.5 inches by 5.5, so it would be 5 1/4. So let's see, I need to trim this down a little bit. So if it's 3.5, it would need to be 3 1/4. And if it's 5, let me see, 4 1/4 wide, now that's going to be the high part, then that would need to be 4 high, right? So line that up. And this is another thing that if you're new to this, that I really highly suggest that you get to know the measurements of a basic card, 5.5 by 4 1/4. And how you make these layers then with the little bit of the cardstock showing around it is it's 1/4 inch smaller. So 5.5 this way would mean 5 1/4. 4 1/4 this way would mean 4. It might seem like a lot of numbers right now, but when you get into this and you use the same numbers over and over and over again, it won't be long. I think I'm going to turn it this way. It won't be long, and you'll be knowing those numbers, and you'll realize that you don't have to get a pattern. You might get a sample out of a card that you made, but you don't have to get the actual pattern out and get your ruler out and measure, measure, measure. In time, you will get to know what those measurements are. Oh, sorry about that. So that's 4 1/4. So I want my side pieces to be 4, and those are inch. So I'll want these side pieces then to be 3/4 inch. And I'm going to cut 2 of those so I can put one on each side. And it's that simple. As I said, when you use the measurements over and over, you will learn what they are and how simple it is to put together a card because you know it's going to be 1/4 inch smaller. So this is the second of my 4. This I call the front flip. And I'm going to glue these down. Really, if you take a whole piece that's 5.5 by 4 1/4, which would cover the whole front, then you can just cut that into the individual pieces here. All right, now you can see that I've glued it on. Now the only other thing I need to do is glue this down on just 2 sides, because you have the fold here. Just put just a thin line. I always say a thread worth of glue. And very carefully then you're just going to glue it down. That leaves this side open as a pocket to put a gift card or some currency in there. You might decide that because this is so dark, you couldn't really write on it with the person being able to read it. So then you're going to put a white layer on the inside, and there's your card. And you might decide to send it just like this, or you might decide that you want to put a circle, a square, some other kind of die cut or something on the front, and a sentiment, just like this one has these globes on the front. So I like this just the way it is, but you might decide. So here's my 2 of my 4 Know Your 4 designs. These are 2 of my favorite. Like I said, I just finished making 14 of this front flip. And then the other one, that's my absolute favorite. I would say I almost have the most of these cards. It's the show off design. So you have the front flip here and the show off design here. Now, thanks for watching. Come back in a few days and I will have another paper, a 3D paper project, which doesn't really fall along with my tree themed projects, but I found it on the internet and I've had so much fun making it. So come back and I promise to do it for you before Christmas. Thanks for watching. Now go get creative.